with Chris Johnson.
Episode 6. My brother Prashant Aswani. He's got a brand new record called Beautiful Life about to drop. Brand new signature pickups from EMG. You can check out some of his music on the Players Pick podcast playlist on Spotify.
That stuff, I'll get it.
That's just me being a jerk.
No.
That's good. I'm glad to know about that. And one of the things I hope that some of the stuff that you've been kind of sharing on Instagram is kind of like some indication of what we'll see in the record. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. I mean, I've basically been taking. I have about 80 songs that I have been writing over the last since Visions, and so this is just a culmination of 10 that are coming out on this record, but I'm going to be pretty prolific again in terms of releasing material. Starting with January of 2019.
Cool.
I had to just kind of take some tangents, and I got a lot of other projects that I was doing, and I was able to be behind the scenes, which I love to do. I love to produce and engineer. So, just doing other stuff that I love to do, Yeah,
I know. That's something I actually failed to mention in the beginning, is that that's a primary crux in a lot of ways, is like what you spend a lot of time doing is producing other people and finding, their sweet spot for them.
Sure.
And then getting them, in that zone and helping them pull stuff out of themselves that they didn't know was quite there, right?
That's fun for me. I love that, Yeah, and in fact, I probably love that more than,
the solo gig.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love to play guitar, but I get a lot of excitement from producing albums and writing and composing.
Sure.
Playing guitar is, always going to be a part of me, but it's not the only thing that I enjoy in terms of music.
Sure. I'm curious with you. What was your first memory of a guitar pick? Was there somebody special that gave it to you, or what kind or what color?
Yeah, I first started playing guitar for about a year just on an acoustic, and I didn't use a pick, and it was just a guitar that my mom brought me back from India, and I was just using my fingers,
Mm-hmm.
But when I first went with my dad to go get an electric guitar because they saw that I was serious, and my dad was like, "All right, let's go get one." And so I saw this purple fade Gibson Explorer, and it was like $300. And back then in the 80s, that was kind of a lot of money for me, but $300 for a Gibson Explorer, and I got it, and it was purple, and then I needed a pick. So the guy, I saw these purple Tortexes. I'm like, I want those because they match my guitar, right? And so I used the purple Tortex for a couple of years, and I really liked the way they wore down. I just liked those picks. They lasted a while, and they felt good. And I played all my Zeppelin and Rush covers and AC/DC and all the shit in my garage bands with the purple Tortex. And then a few years later, I met some guys that were shredders, and they were sweet picking and all this stuff, and they used these Jazz 3 picks. So I started using those. I used them, but there wasn't enough mass around them for me. Mm-hmm. I realize that now, some 30 years later. And so, but I could never really get the snap, like I hear from Angus and, Jimmy Page and those guys. I always wanted that. And, they used, celluloid picks.
Right.
I would imagine. I know that AC/DC did. So anyway, I ended up going in a totally opposite direction. Greg Howe used the black 2mm alligator picks.
Oh, right, the Gator Grip.
Gator Grip, but the black ones, right? Yep. And so I started using those, and because there were just tons of them laying around. I just started using those. We're making a record.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck it, right?
And he is one great guitar player, and helping another one out, and
and so I used those for years, and then finally I was doing the Columbia Records Roadshow, like in 1999, with Paul Pesco was the music director. He's an incredible talent. Madonna's guitar player for like over a decade. He's played with everybody, session and touring guy. And Paul had these signature picks, and I don't know who made them, but they were celluloid, and they were just awesome. The tone of them. And I realized that, like, when I was playing pop, like, I needed to have that more open kind of thing happen, you know, especially with chords and stuff. And it was not about lead playing at all. And so I started using his picks, and I grabbed, like, you know, a handful, and I started using those, and I couldn't really find them. And then I gravitated towards the Fender Extra Heavy celluloid picks.
Yeah.
And those worked great. And until, you know, Chris was at Dunlop, and he said, dude, we make celluloid. And so the shape was a little bit different with the celluloid at Dunlop, but the celluloid material that Dunlop makes, it, like, the tone and the feel and the way it wears down was far superior than the Fender 351. And so, like, I had to just get used to it, and I did. It didn't take long, and I've been using the Dunlop celluloid picks, Extra Heavy, for a lot of years now, right? 5-6 years
at least.
And and I recently switched to another shape of the celluloid. It's pretty much the same. We're talking about,
it's a little
really
pointier,
micro,
right? It's
yeah,
got a little bit more of a narrow,
right. And we're talking about just real micro, but because I was I was in between, I was playing all kinds of guitars this last year, and like Les Pauls, all kinds of different guitars that have totally different bridges and setups. And so I found that the pick length, you know, these like micromillimeter amounts matters, like, for me, for my accuracy. And I know that sounds crazy, but it really does. And so what worked with the Strat doesn't necessarily translate with the Les Paul. So the longer, like the narrower shoulder, you know, with a little bit of a point, which is what the new Dunlops are, ended up working out great. And you know, they put a beautiful logo on there for me, and the name. And
your picks look good. I like the white ones and these new these the brown
tortoise shell
with the gold. I like those. But I always have a few of these the red ohm ones laying around. It's like, reminds me of you.
Thanks.
Those are good picks too.
Well, I still use both. I mean,
like,
you know, they're my go-to. They're very comfortable, and
So you were okay. That's an interesting evolution of picks there, and I mean, would you attribute you kind of like it's the sound, it's the classic sound, but it's also, there's a certain amount of like more snap, or
there just is. They're like, so I get these when I bend or use the tremolo bar. You know, when I'm playing, I get a lot of harmonics and overtones, but I find that very specifically the Dunlop celluloid picks, like, I can get a snap and open up a note, like, and I can play it the exact same way with the celluloid versus any other kind of pick, but it opens up and I get these crazy overtones and harmonics. And I've done the testing. I mean, I've literally gone through countless number of materials of picks, and these just have the thing, and they're really a part of my sound. I got to be honest. I mean, like, it's weird to say that a pick makes that much difference, but I would say pick, strings.
First contact, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
it is.
You know, it is first contact, unless you're using fingers. Which your fingers on the left hand, right?
Yeah, and I do use my fingers, you know, with my right hand. I hybrid pick a lot. So, I mean, but yeah, so I guess the best kind of contrast between the finger and the pick would be the celluloid with that snap, and then my finger is warmer, right? My middle finger and my third finger that I use, it's warmer. So that contrasts together when I'm playing. It sounds really good to me. And
cool.
And you know, I want to say this too, the prime tone picks, the original ones without the grip, in the standard, you know, 351 shape, those are also really good picks. They don't have as much snap as the celluloid, but they do have a great attack. So and they don't wear out as quick.
Well, that's the Ultex.
Right. Yeah. Is that what it is, the prime tone?
That's what it is. It's a special blend that Jimmy came up with.
Okay, well, that definitely is like a close second. You'll catch me playing those.
Yeah, I'm
those.
a fan of those too.
Yeah.
Like I actually like the thicker. I mean, I'm a fan of all these different kinds of picks that we make, but out of the Primetone standard shapes, like I really love like the 2.5 and 3.0.
Okay.
Like just because they have the big asymmetrical bevel on them. But you got which one?
The 1.3s are my favorite.
Oh, okay.
The 1.3s, which is weird because it's a little bit thicker
than the extra heavy.
Than the extra heavy celluloid, but it reacts very similarly in terms of the way it bends. And I have to say this too. So, I tried a bunch of different celluloid blends that, like, in terms of the colors. Mm-hmm. And I found that the white chip, it's like this perloid. The
white perloid, yeah.
Yeah, that has a bit more stiffer, a little bit harder feel, and it's my preferred actual material than, like, let's say the solid white or the solid black, which I think the solid black is the softest. Even as an extra heavy, it's the softest of the celluloids.
Yeah, colorants make a difference.
It really does.
Yeah.
And then this tortoise is also soft when they're first like when I first open the bag, but when I let them kind of dry out, they get that brittleness, which is awesome. That's what gives me that snap.
So, I mean, just rolling right into the next piece, like
Sure.
What I'm interested in too is hearing what you might be able to share, like as far as your philosophy or like perspective on life. Do you what keeps you like motivated and inspired these days?
That's a great question. I don't know that I'm on a fixed agenda of motivation per se. Like I think I just come to the studio every day, and obviously I have projects that I've got to get done. I've got deadlines, but I come to the studio every day because I love to do what I do, and it really. I mean, being a musician, being able to like play guitar and turn knobs allows me to have flexibility with the rest of my life, and I think that's the perspective I have. And so like if I like the rest of my life is great, I have a great wife, my family life is awesome, my friends are killer, like there's no drama, no issues, and I think for that to continue, I got to come to the studio. I got to put in my hours and do what I need to here at the studio for the rest of my life to be great. It's a weird formula, but so that's what motivates me. It's kind of like it's a cycle. So, I take days off here and there, I enjoy life, but for the most part, like I have to get some time, working.
So focus, it sounds like focus is a big part of like, like staying in your work and staying focused on completing projects and moving forward.
To get to the point where I'm at, I mean, like for the past like 15 years, like I was really kind of addicted to productivity, like getting stuff written, getting stuff recorded, like really like after I record a track. It doesn't matter whether it's mine or someone else's. I get this like incredible high. It's the same thing after I mix a song. It's like I'm addicted to that endorphin rush that I get, with the music being completed. Like finishing, I'm addicted to finishing projects. And so I would start, writing and completing songs. And that's why I have so much material right at this point in my life. And I'll tell you, like I went into kind of a over-workaholic, type of place. And, a few years ago when I met my wife, when we started dating, I realized, like I got to have a little bit more of a balance. And she's into her work, and she lets me be. But that's the cool thing is that, like, we enjoy spending time together. And I know that balance is healthy. And that's what I'm really living that today, for the first time in my life. So, let's see how all this kind of comes together with the new music,
Well, knowing you for a few years now, I will agree that when I see you these days, I see you much happier, much more relaxed about the work ethic. It's not like you're not working hard.
Yeah.
But there's a certain like ease about you with it, like some of the hard edge is rounded off a little bit. You're a little more relaxed.
Totally.
I mean, because you have a sweet wife, man. Stevie is incredible. I don't have to tell you.
Yeah, no,
but like every time
that.
We've been out together, I'm just like, man, you really lucked out. I mean, she is a good person, and she's like a kind human being.
Yeah.
And you, of course, you hope that for anybody that's getting a relationship.
Totally.
But not everybody makes those type of choices. Not everybody gets that lucky, so to speak, either. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had to go through the gamut of, my own path to get to this place. And you're right. I mean, really, I'm very fortunate. I mean, it's not like you can, flip a coin or like turn on a switch and then all of a sudden like this type of thing happens.
Right.
It happened.
And so.
But I'm glad that you brought that up because I think so that is a very important part of my life. It brings me a fulfillment that is separate and different than the fulfillment I get from music, and I'm able to have both now. And I just have to keep. And so I am more relaxed. Like I'm not like it's just music. Like if I do a take and it feels right and there might be some like things that aren't perfect, like in terms of notes and technique, I don't really care anymore. It's like, dude, like it's conveying what I wanted it to convey. I don't really spend. I don't spend hours and hours just like woodshedding. It's like not because I don't have to. I mean, I definitely gotta prepare for instrumental shows and things like that for sure. But it's not. I don't get enjoyment from just sitting down and practicing technique. I get more enjoyment from writing and creating new music, and that for me is where it's at. And
like I said in the beginning, I it's part of one of my favorite things about you and your playing is I feel like you don't overthink it. You emote well, with the instrument, and because I think there's oftentimes I feel like you're channeling a little bit, like and it's like, which I know is maybe a part of what you're up to and at this point in your life, because you've already spent so many hours doing the technique, doing the gigs, writing, recording, so that when it's time to actually take the solo part, and kind of like just let it hang out, it's just it feels like I've seen you. I remember when we did the EMG TV videos, their very first ones, and we go back and what was his name? Jeff Brockman, right? Like he's like, oh, you want to do that again? There was a little thing, and me and you were like, that's pretty bad. I like the little thing, the little thing in there makes it like human and like it's good. Like let it hang out a little bit, because if it's too clean, it's almost like, it's too sterile, or it's not. It doesn't have that element, and you've. It's not about like, I just leave in mistakes or anything. It's not like that. It's not that element. So for people that are listening, it's like it's not what we're talking about. Like, oh, he just fucks up and then like lets it sit in there. Well, it's not that. It's a different thing, And
and I mean, I think it's like I'm not like when I solo. It's improvised, I might have an idea of a phrase that I want to have, in there, but I'm not necessarily going to get that idea in. It's truly improvised, and I think that when it is that there are going to be some mistakes, but I think the mistakes, Frank Zappa said it best, and I'm going to paraphrase because. But he did an interview, and they talked about, like, he did so many shows and so many records. The guy was one of the most prolific artists of all time. I mean, like, just a genius. And I don't even think that this is even debatable. But, and I'm going to paraphrase. But in the interview, they asked him about, playing and how he keeps it interesting. And he talked about improvising. And he's like, yeah, like, I'll improvise and, like, I'll fuck up and it happens. But there'll be that one night where it's like the perfect fucking solo.
Yeah.
And he goes, that can never be duplicated. And it's chasing that keeps him improvising. And that's kind of like what it is for me, like I'll just keep going and, there'll be that perfect performance. And obviously the level raises, as the proficiency in the instrument. So like me on a shitty day, it's not going to be like a total train wreck or anything.
Sure.
It's just going to be not so inspiring to me, maybe. You know, it might be to someone else. But I chase that time and that moment where I'm inspiring to myself, you know, ultimately.
Well, that's I appreciate it because as much as like I look at a guy like John Petrucci for example, that guy is so precise and so like rehearsed, right? Like there's an element of him, not that he can't. I know that he does improv. I've seen him improv too, and he's great at that too. Unfortunately, the guy is great at a lot of things, right?
Right.
Not everybody can be John Petrucci, only him. But and you know, it's funny how he's become a meme for us guitar culture, you know, in a way like where he's like this. I don't know. It's interesting, but I use him as an example of like. He's one of those dudes that can and will play the solo exactly as it was on this on the record every time with perfection. You know, perfect bends, with very little, you know, deviation.
Sure.
And I have a appreciation for that. That's great. It's way beyond my comprehension because I don't have personally the focus for that. I never as a player I've always kind of been more of the method that you, even though I'm nowhere near your abilities, but I have the same kind of feeling of like I just want to express and find my thing and even when I did write a couple records and oftentimes we end up finishing the solos in the studio through a couple of comps. You know, like might be 2 takes or 3 takes in a solo section, and then I go back and learn that, and then I would just use that as the theme.
Right.
And then, but every night it was always fun. Like, I got the theme now. It's on the record, but when the fans come, it's nice to kind of expand upon the theme and not have it be a little bit different. Right. I know fans have different opinions on that. Some people are like just like some players want to do it the same way every night, and some players want to like embellish.
Right.
But what you're talking about, Frank, and all that, like if you're willing to be vulnerable, right, that the possibility of every third or fifth time you come around to that theme, like it's gonna be different and its own organic like happening, versus another exact copy of the thing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I want if I may just expand upon that. A lot of times playing, like just mentioning Petrucci, a lot of his solos are compositional. And so in a way it's not like in his band Dream Theater, like those solos are very composed and have a very specific song purpose.
Right.
And so I think that playing that solo the same way is very appropriate, and and I think it's super important, and I think in vocal tunes in general, usually solos, even if improvised to tape or recorded improvised, they're very compositional. Like Eddie Van Halen, his solos are very compositional, man.
Right.
I mean, and I'm sure he improvised all of them,
at one point.
Yeah, but I mean, he repeats them. So like, I'm not in any way opposed to that, and I do.
Certain things you stick to.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do repeat things, intentionally. But I have the most fun when like I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I just that's my character. Like I'm more. I have more fun, and I guess it's kind of selfish.
But that's what I'm getting at is that's the part of you that I like watching and I really get off on is because when you don't know and I don't know, then wow, it's happening right now.
Right.
Like I don't have this memorized. Right. Even if I've heard the song a bunch. Right. So but I agree with you. The compositional nature of especially, I mean, Eddie Van Halen can't deviate, bro. Like, not really. Like, he's like not at that level. We've all heard all those solos and those guitar riffs a bajillion times. Like, you can't go anywhere for any reason. Walk in, you can hear like in the background in a store or whatever. You're gonna hear Eddie Van Halen, and it's just ingrained into you. So if he starts going, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna start winging it. You guys, you've all heard that. I'm gonna deviate. I think he'd lose like half the audience. They'd be throwing shit at him, at some point.
I would love to see that, but
I would too. But
yeah,
that's what you come to see, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing, and actually that brings in one other thing I want to say about this. Eddie sounds like he's improvising when he's repeating a solo. So guys can play a learned part, and it's a learned part. But there's the rare guys like Eddie Van Halen who have so much fire and so much pocket and feel that he can play a solo that is learned, but it sounds like he's playing it for the first time. And that, but there's one Eddie. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, I always wanted that. And another guy who does that is Yngwie Malmsteen. Yngwie and Eddie have a fire about their playing. Yngwie just, dude, when he goes on his tangents, dude, it's like nothing else, dude.
Right.
I mean, I know that it's all very compositionally, it's very similar from what he's always been done, but it's still so exciting in that moment to watch him do it, because his bending and vibrato, and ultimately the bending and vibrato for me, Jeff Beck, Van Halen, Yngwie's bending and vibrato. I mean, these guys. There's a lot of guys, but these guys have. That's where the voice of a musician is. It's right in that.
Let's just go back, Jeff Beck.
Oh my gosh!
Right, I know that it's interesting right now. I'm laughing because we're talking about perspective, and then we end up talking back. But these are interesting perspectives too, right?
Totally.
on these different players and the approaches. But what a gift Jeff is to the rest of us,
oh my God,
lay people. Because it is interesting because I kind of came around to Jeff late, way late, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And because a friend of mine one night we were jamming, my buddy Pete, we're jamming at my house and messing around, and I just speaking to improv and just not
sure.
And for me I know. Because I play a lot less than a lot of you professional people that are, doing this day in and day out. So it's it takes me a good hour or two of jamming to try to get past all my same old noodles,
Sure.
And and start to see the fretboard differently, as a whole thing again, and connecting. So I'm always kind of relearning certain aspects. But that night we had been playing for a while. And I have my ESP Strat that I
remember that.
I love that thing.
Yeah.
I had it for a long time, and it's still kind of the thing. But that night I was just doing more bar work, and I started to get in tonal tune, with using it a little bit that night based on whatever bass line he was playing.
Sure.
And we got done, and we looked up. We even recorded a little bit of that night, and he's like, you're really reminding me of Jeff Beck tonight. And I was like,
wow.
Because it's that little thing you're doing. It's and I'm like, you're gonna make me go back and listen to Jeff Beck again, because I haven't listened to. My dad had some Jeff Beck,
sure.
and it had been around, but I never stopped and gave it my attention.
Right.
You know, and then he's like, oh, you should put on this album, Wired, or these couple different albums. I was like, okay. And then it wasn't too long later that you and I had become friends, and I started seeing the way you use your bar. And you're even though you're a pick guy and he's a finger guy and all this stuff, you guys have some similarities there, and I know that he's a favorite player, and it's there's got to be some serious influence there, right?
Yeah, I mean Jeff. For me it goes back to I grew up on Indian music, not really any Western music, and so Indian music is all quarter tonalities, and
that makes
you
sense.
get the quarter tonalities from fretless instruments like violin or Indian instruments, I can go down the names, but and so that is very resonant and familiar and easy to get to. And so using a tremolo from when I was a kid, I just used it. And then a guy like Jeff Beck or Michael Landau or even Steve Lukather, these guys have an ability to emote a note with the quarter tonality bends up or down with the bar, and you can get that. And so for me, it's natural with my ear to do it, and so Jeff Beck is like obviously the king,
Master,
let's face it, the guy, and then in all fairness, look, Eddie Van Halen too, like he uses the bar like
true,
absolutely brilliantly. I mean, so it's just another tool to be able to get the one note to do more for you. You know what I'm saying? You can really, and it opens up, I use it to really open up harmonics and overtones and to get like different sounds. And, and that brings me to George Lynch, like way back in the day. I've known George a long time and we've done some projects together. But George, like when he plays a note, like he can play the same note 10 times and it'll sound different every single time because of the way he approaches that note. I mean, it's freaking incredible.
He is a master of masters as well, actually. Like as far as phrasing and like the whole finesse of approach,
dude.
I mean, it's hard to beat.
Just he's does this thing. I mean, it's the overtones, and I'll tell you, I really understood it. Like, a long time ago, probably over 10 years ago, I produced 2 DVDs he did. Wicked Licks and Scary Riffs or something like that for Hal Leonard. Anyway, we had to sit down and we spent like 8 hours a day for like a couple of weeks, like getting his whole style together. And I was just watching this guy play, like really get into shape for doing this instructional DVDs. And every time he played the same lick, it sounded different. I'm like, I got to figure this out. So, like after that, I spent a lot of time playing one note and just getting the one note to sound different. And I mean, I spent more hours probably on that than any sort of like technical shred.
So would you attribute it to pick technique?
Yeah, so it's the way you angle the pick and the way you position it, and that goes back to how the celluloid is.
Right, and
that allows me to be able to get a duller and it just allows me to have all sounds. Like I can get a thicker pick, like the Gator Grip 2mm. It doesn't matter how I hit the string; it's always going to be more muted all the time, no matter how hard or how soft or what angle. Right? And I tested all this, right?
Yeah.
But that's just the nature of that material, and it's great for many genres of music. It's just not for what I was looking to do, and the celluloid is what, where it came to for me. So I spent more time, I spent more hours playing one note to get it to sound different, after like working with George, and than I did probably anything else, and then approaching the note, like hitting the note, and then like bending it up, and then with the bar, and then bending it down, getting it down, like all out of tune, but doing it so that it could eventually get back into that happy, intonated place.
To me, a player like yourself and people like George and Jeff Beck and that finesse that comes with the bar, and it's funny because I watch this wrist, I watch your right arm and hand, and how it's almost kind of loose in the hands. You're not gripping because it's such a light finesse. To me, it's as delicate and intricate as playing slide.
Yes, it is,
because and it's a similar thing, right? Because your slide's going over the frets.
Correct,
you can get in between.
Yes.
The frets. And do you do much slide?
I tried it, and I have a funny slide story. I tried it, and I was in the studio watching Steve Lukather make one of his records a couple of records ago, and he was doing the slide thing, and I was watching him, and I'm like, dude, let me try that. And so I tried, and I completely sucked. And he saw that, and I go, dude, why do I sound like this? I can't do this.
Yeah.
And he actually taught me how to mute the strings with my first 2 fingers before that are preceding the slide.
Yeah.
And so I tried it, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. Yeah. I'll just use the bar.
I'm admittedly like
do you know what I mean?
A noob at that. I mean, I every time I picked it up, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'll just stick to the frets,
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
markers. I know where, that's just me. But
I mean, I got a fretless guitar that I got made from ESP, and I used that on some recordings.
Cool.
But I think it's great to use that for like melodies and things. But I don't practice on the fretless because I mean ultimately, I like the guitar to kind of be the guitarist. I stick to 6 strings pretty much and just detune from there.
Well, who would you say are some of the top slide players? Like, especially because you don't
Derek
play.
Trucks.
Trucks, of course.
I mean, obviously Beck and Steve Lukather and Landau, like, these guys really know. But another someone who's really great at slide is 2 guys I want to mention that might not be like as famous as the ones that I said. One is Bret Garson.
Who's that?
Bret Garson is like an incredible musician. He's been around forever. He used to play in Nelson. He did a lot of like big pop sideman gigs. But he's one of those old school Legato Records shrapnel guys.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, the guy is unbelievable. In fact, it was Bret did a clinic at Berklee College of Music when I was like 18 or 19, going there, and I saw it. And I was like 10 feet away from him, and he was using all his fingers and a pick, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, it blew my mind. And I went up to him and I just said, hey man, is this what you're doing? And he showed me that he did an arpeggio. He goes, this is what I'm doing. And he showed me really slow.
The hybrid picking?
Yeah. And I'm like, I got to do this. And then I just, once he showed that to me, because there was no YouTube or anything like that back then, right? So like, but I watched this guy just do it. Pick, pluck, pluck, pluck. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I just kind of took that and ran with it,
He's a slide player too?
Yeah, and he plays slide like unbelievably well. Bret Garson. Go look him up. He's from Australia.
Okay.
He's an absolute phenom. Brilliant musician. I mean, like, truly gifted. And the other guy is Greg Koch. He's one of my big homies. We do the Wildwood thing together. And I mean, he is the Wildwood genius. But Greg Koch, man, I mean, dude, that guy's got like 23 records out or something.
Really?
Like that. Yeah, dude.
I'm not schooled enough. I'm not up to date on him.
Craig is so prolific. But anyway, his slide playing is ridiculous. I mean, the guy's playing in general. Greg's playing. I mean, I just, like, it's mind-boggling. I mean, all of us, like, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, we'll just watch Greg Koch and go, yeah, dude, this guy just never.
I'll have to spend some more time with this stuff. I've seen him play at demoing stuff like for Fishman and different places.
Yeah.
And he's always just phenomenal at NAMM. Any of those little booths, and I'm just like, and everybody's like huddled around trying to like catch a lick or like understand anything he's up to. Dude. And he's such a nice dude.
Oh my gosh!
That like
gentleman.
It's hard not to like him. Well, it's because and I asked about the slide thing just because we both admittedly are like it's not our gig, right? But 2 of my favorites are probably Ian Thornley.
Okay.
Big Wreck.
Okay, yep, I know him.
Yeah, he's man. I mean, I got to know him a little bit. We did Dunlop sessions with him in the Big Wreck band. And
Killer.
And got to watch up close like what he was up to. But he every once in a while, I think he does these like Friday finger fun type things on Instagram.
Okay.
And he'll just be noodling around, it's just an iPhone video, whatever, and he'll have some sort of theme where he might like quote another song, but like the way he does it is there's so much. You just have to have so much finesse. You have to have so much, like a really good ear, obviously for the whole thing. So I love Ian, and then I'm just like an eternal fan of Bonnie Raitt.
Oh my gosh, she's incredible.
Right? Like,
oh my goodness.
I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
Can't even believe it.
I saw her live about 15 years ago, and I got to meet her, and I got to just watch her play like really up close, and oh my gosh, she plays with so much emotion.
Yeah.
I mean,
so much class, so much style.
And her just, I mean, and she's technically brilliant. Yes. I mean, dude, it's like, wow, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that woman. I mean,
same.
And Jennifer Batten, like
Jennifer too. Yeah.
Huge fan of hers too. I mean, now that we just went on a woman thing, like these are like Jennifer played with Jeff Beck and Michael Jackson, and she has her own records out. I mean, she's just a true brilliant.
Well, this is actually a really good segue because we're talking about our favorites.
Yeah.
I was gonna. That's part of my little outline for this for these sessions is to end with asking you well, who are some players that either maybe aren't as well known that should be better known, or
Sure.
like who are some of your favorite players you listen to right now?
I think, as of late, this kid named Jordan Ziff, he plays in Marty Friedman's band.
Friedman's band. That's right.
And but he got the gig for Raitt. He's actually the guitar player for Raitt. He replaced
Warren?
Well, I mean, I don't know,
or whoever else was there.
But let me tell you, this kid, man, he's so cool. We became pretty good friends, and he's super cool. And the kid plays his ass off.
Well, you got to if you're gonna be in a band with Marty.
But he's got that. Like, he plugs straight into an amp, no effects, and he's got that aggressive feel and play. And yes, and of course, like, literally he plays with Marty, which is like, and I was fortunate enough to like have Marty in my studio not too long ago.
You produced a new track for him, right?
Well, no,
or was it?
we did an EMG TV shoot here at my studio with him. And I got to track and mix the songs, 3 tunes we did, and so like, I mean, that was way beyond, like, for me, Marty Friedman was one of my, I like listen to him and Jason Becker,
dude,
like, what the hell,
come on, dude.
Being from the Bay Area,
dude,
you know.
And let's just talk. This is like sideline. Like,
Yeah.
note is that we're talking about all these kind of these ways to move between the frets, and so like using the bar and using slide. But just bends. But just bends. And like, when I remember, I tell you, Prashant, like, as a young kid, I don't even think I wasn't playing guitar, but my brother and I, like, got handed Rust in Peace by a friend of ours, older brother, who was the metal dude, you know, was in high school, we were junior high or whatever, and just like listening to those leads, and I mean the riffs and everything's so cool, but like the way I don't know, I can't quite explain it, but like there's like that pre-bend thing that he kind of does, and that he'll get it up and then pull it into the right thing, and so the emotive quality of his playing is like second to none. You know, it's magic.
You know, he did a little medley of all his Megadeth solos live. At the show.
Oh, yeah.
Because I went to the show after the sessions.
I saw him like a year ago or something. I think I remember that.
And oh my gosh, dude. I mean, like, it was ridiculous. I mean, he's a composer. The guy's a total package. Man.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm a huge fan. But Jordan Ziff is a bad to the bone kid, and I'm telling you, he's going places. Man.
Cool.
And
I look forward to like seeing what he comes up with, because he's going to be doing touring with Raitt, and
but he's got a new solo album coming
he does
out. Yeah, and so I got a chance to hear some of the tracks. They're killer, dude. I mean, there's Marty influence, you can hear his influences, but man, this kid's killer. And so him, and then I would say, you know, another guy that I love to work with and I love to see is Art Menezes. He's a blues guy.
What a great dude.
But man, he's got a ton of technique, but he's committed, man, to his genre and his playing, and he's so good. He's so good. I mean, so these guys, there's a ton of great players.
He's here out of L.A., right?
Yeah, he's in L.A.
Okay, wait, is he local? Is he from this area?
No, he's from Brazil.
Man, so let me just do another aside.
Yeah.
What is up with all these people from Brazil like owning the guitar market right now?
Well,
I mean, what is it? Is it Mateus?
Yeah, Mateus Asado.
And you got Art, you got Larry, and what's the other gentleman? I love. I'm trying to.
Andre Neri.
I mean, just those 4 guys alone. And I know there's more.
Rafa Moreira.
Yeah,
He's
from Brazil too.
Yeah, he's from Brazil too. Yeah, absolutely. He was kind of the first one, and and he's had some big gigs.
You know? No, he's definitely out there. I know there was I think was it Hussein Haddad. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was he kind of almost looks like Guthrie a little bit.
Okay.
He's kind of caught some of that vibe a little bit. Like he was playing Dreamer guitars, but he's actually still in Brazil. He's not here.
Right.
So I think there's a thing, if you're in Brazil and you're a badass guitar and you can make it here, like, we're probably gonna blow you up. Like, we're gonna somehow. Like,
I've had thinking about it. I've had the fortunate opportunity to work with all of those Brazilians.
Yeah.
And I will say that they all have their own voice. They all are immensely talented. And, like, I'm a fan, you know? I'm a fan of all... Laurie, Andre, Art, Mateos, obviously, you know, he's just, like, super mega talent. And Hoffa, you know, I mean, yeah, man, you know, listen, dude, I think that, like, music is a beautiful shared thing. And I love that, you know, there's all these...
Every flavor,
voices.
Right?
Yeah, I just
voices.
love it, man. Same. Because I can be bored one night and just flip through Instagram and watch all these like amazing guitar players just playing what they want to play on this video. You know, it doesn't matter what it sounds like, but they're just doing their own thing. Yeah. And I love to watch guitar players or musicians in general just take a minute to do their own thing.
Express them. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
You know, it's really cool.
I'll second that. It's part of why I'm doing this too, is because I really enjoy individual expression, right? And I think that it's really interesting how unique each one of us are, really, in the grand scheme of things. You know, like to expand into a little philosophical moment, right? Like to say, you know, it's really, you know, there's only one of you.
Sure.
You know, there's only one of me.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes, you know, I'm a big fan of yoga, and it's kind of my jam, right? It's like, if you were to ask me, like, what gets you inspired and motivated?
Right.
Like, man, I got to do a yoga class, you know, like it's my practice, right?
Sure.
But one of the things that I often remind students of in class is that your yoga is highest yoga, right? So I would say, you know, your music, your creation is like the highest, right? Because it's yours,
right?
In that way, and so we can get into that comparison game, which we inevitably kind of do, even if we're really cool about it, right? Like we like, oh well, he's got that and I don't, or she's got that and I don't, or I've got this and you don't. Sure. But those are the little strong points and the things that we've developed through our personalities,
right?
And so once we get past that kind of juvenile like comparison stage, and we get interested in everybody rising, you know, and just like being celebratory of one's individual expression, then wow, what a great place to be, because then it's like, wow, I just get to celebrate all this stuff, and there's gonna be stuff that you don't favor as much, but you can still look at them as a human and go,
listen,
wow.
By default, I've fallen into that place where I've been able to work with so many guitar players and being behind the scenes, you know. And I'll tell you, like, I love it. I love it because I get to see these guys like in their most raw and vulnerable element, just kind of do their thing, and it's great for me, you know. And so I agree with you completely. Everybody's got their own thing, you know. And if they don't, they will at some point. They'll find it.
Just
keep going. Yeah, it's inevitable. It's inevitable, man. Life will force you to find your own thing.
And and if you don't find it in music, there's all these other avenues in life to find it.
Sure,
right?
Of course.
This is just the place that we happen to inhabit mostly.
Of course,
you know. Right on, man.
Yeah, cool.
I appreciate you sharing all this time with me and with the listeners, and it's a pleasure, and it's inspirational to me, as you always continue to be in the way you approach things. Thank you so much, Prashant.
Oh, love you, man. Thank you
too.
For having me. Appreciate it.
Pacifist. Patchouli. Players Pick Podcast. Picks and perspective with Chris Johnson. Pool table. Pan.